Welcome back to another episode of Epic Gangsta Tales. Today we got a very interesting topic. Today we're going to go over pretty much the connection between the Demeo crew and the Westies. You know, in particular, Roy De Mayo and Jimmy COONAN. There was an established relationship there, and, you know, today we're going to get into that, see how that started, you know, what benefits came about it, and, you know, ultimately how it ended. But ultimately, I've always, you know, if you've read The Westies, the book The Westies, it's excellent. A lot of what we're going to go over today is from that book. The other part is from Murder Machine. You can find information on today's episode from both books. You know, as always, I always like to let you know where I get the information from. But with that being said, let's go ahead and get into the episode, guys. Now, on May 13th, 1977, Mickey Spillane, age 43, was gunned down outside of his house. Spillane was, at the time, the current head of the Irish mob in New York, and was in the middle of a shooting war with a rising star within the world of the Irish mob in New York, that being Jimmy COONAN and the so-called Westies, a gang of young Irish mobsters that brought a whole new level of violence to New York, to the New York underworld, really. You know, Spillane was killed as sort of a pact between Roy De Mayo and Jimmy COONAN, and in fact, it was Roy De Mayo himself who gunned down Mickey Spillane for Jimmy COONAN. You know what I mean? If that's not a dedicated friend right there, I don't know what is. You know what I mean? But like I said, after the assassination of Mickey Spillane, Jimmy COONAN became the new boss of the Irish mob in New York City. They were dubbed the Westies by the press and the police due to their location in Manhattan. You know, the Italians, they called the Genovese crime family, quote-unquote, the West Side. You know, the Irish mob was called the Westies, quote-unquote. You know, the West Side of New York, West Side of Manhattan, the Westies, you know. These guys did a lot of business together. They split up hijacking proceeds from the airport. They, you know, between the two crews, they dealt a lot of drugs together, that being cocaine, being a big one. You know, and basically, there's just so much in that relationship there that, you know, it's kind of open-ended that, you know, I'll ask if you have a better input, maybe put it down in the comment section, let me know. Like I said, some of the stuff is open-ended, okay? So first off, who came up with the no body, no case mantra, right? You deal with two psychotic crews. You got Jimmy COONAN and the Westies, right? And you got Roy De Mayo and the De Mayo crew. These are two twisted, very, you know, evil organizations, both, right? So the Westies had what they called doing the Houdini, right? That meant cut up the body, they murder you, cut up the body, disappear the stuff, right? You know, they never find the body, there's no case, they're not investigating a murder, you know, so what are we even talking about here? You get what I'm saying, right? So they called it doing the Houdini, the Westies. Now, the De Mayo crew had a whole nother gist of it, you know, the Gemini method, right? Chop up the bodies, we killed this guy, chop up the bodies, they put him in different trash bags, right? They let the blood drain out in the Gemini, just evil, evil stuff. I'm going to get to what I'm saying in a moment, you know what I'm saying? So, who taught who, really? Because they don't get into that in the books. In both books, they talk about the connection there with both crews dealing with their bodies the same way, but who taught who? Did Roy De Mayo come up with that sick, twisted concept and teach Jimmy COONAN? Or was Jimmy COONAN taught by the sick and twisted Eddie Kaminsky, who they kind of seem to dub as the Lord High Executioner for the Westies, right? This was a guy that was around Spillane and COONAN, a sick guy, you know, Irish mobster, Eddie Comiskey with the Westies, just a sick bastard, you know, and they credit the Houdini method, doing the Houdini, to him. You know what I mean? But that's never, so I mean, if anyone has any clarification on that, you know, who taught who? They were both doing the same things, and they both had a relationship there. So I always wondered that. I always wondered who taught who what. You know what I mean? So like I said, if you have any insight on that, or you know, comment that down below in the comment section. That's a question that's always ate at my conscience. You know. Next, we got the whole the introduction of the Westies into the Gambino crime family, right? This was a big move. This helped get Roy De Mayo his button and stuff like that. He brought Jimmy COONAN, Mickey Featherstone, and the Westies in to the Veterans and Friends social club, a Gambino-owned social club, to sit down with Big Paul, and pretty much brought them into the fold. The Gambinos got their 10% on another, you know, organization or whatever, you know, it's just that's 10% coming from somewhere. It wasn't coming a day before. So it's a win-win for them. The Westies get to use the Gambino crime family's name when collecting debts, when, you know, they don't have to worry about the Genovese or any of this other stuff that they had problems with before. They're now on board with the Gambino crime family, but they're also allowed to independently still earn and stuff like that, as long as they're meeting that 10%. You know what I mean? So it was really, honestly, a good move for both organizations, the Irish mob and the Gambino crime family. And really, you know, Roy De Mayo and Nino Gaggi kind of got the kudos there on that, which that's where that connection came from. And that connection led all the way through into the John Gotti organization. We'll get into that, you know what I mean? But, you know, that's where the connection started between the two organizations. De Mayo and COONAN, you know, they bonded their relationship with De Mayo assassinating Mickey Spillane, the former Irish mob boss, you know what I mean? And De Mayo and COONAN morphed their organizations together through the conduit, which was Big Paul and the Gambino crime family, through that meeting at the Veterans and Friends Social Club. A big event, you know, when going back on the relationship between the two, Irish mob and the Italians, you know. But ultimately, you know, nothing is guaranteed in that life, and nothing lasts forever, and Roy De Mayo was doing things that he shouldn't have been, and, you know, he pissed off Big Paul. Then they had that big the car theft ring racketeering trial coming down, and ultimately the Gambinos, Big Paul especially, felt like De Mayo was a liability. Who knows how many people this sick bastard had killed, 200 something people or whatever it was, and not to mention, you know, the most depraved people, the people that end up killing the most people. You know what I mean? Their sense of honor is a little twisted, if you think about it. I mean, think about the stuff they're doing. So why would you expect this man to do the honorable thing when he's been doing the most cruel and inhumane things on the street? I.e. hits, you know, double murder, you know, whatever you want to call it. So, you know, there was that. They thought, well, you know, he's that extreme with the killing. Why wouldn't he want to save himself? And, you know, he could possibly rat, you know what I mean? So that being said, we did a whole video on that. Go back and check that out. A couple videos on that. On how Roy De Mayo meets his end. Frankie DeChico, Anthony Casso, Big Paul, they all come together. You know, they're able to make the move of the century, where pretty much Frankie DeChico and Casso promise two prominent members of the De Mayo crew, the Gemini twins, Anthony Center, Joey Testa, position and rank to be made in the Lucchese crime family, a fresh start. They just gotta kill their boss, gotta kill Roy, do what they've done so many times before just to him, and we all start fresh. And that's how it worked out. The Gemini twins killed Roy in a similar fashion to how they had killed so many before, you know. And, you know, that being said, there was a changing of the guard. After De Mayo was whacked out, Danny Marino, a captain in the Gambino crime family, took over Roy's old post as, like, the overseer of the Westies. But a lot of stuff happened in that time, you know, the infighting within the Westies. Featherstone and COONAN had their own little thing going on. And ultimately, with the Westies, Featherstone ends up ratting on COONAN after COONAN has a failed attempt on him to string him up on murder charges, tried to frame him. It didn't work out. He caught wind of it. He rats on COONAN, brings down the majority of the Westies organization. You know, then there was remnants left on the street that were still having dealings with the Gambinos. You know, John Gotti and Sammy the Bull. They had that guy go see that contractor right before the final, you know, when Sammy ratted and stuff like that, the last trial that the Teflon Don beat, you know, I'm talking about with the contractor. They, you know, bust him up. He's caught on tape saying bust him up or whatever. They didn't convict him on that, but essentially what they did was they farmed out, well, whoever was left on the Westies organization, which was pretty much just a couple of drug-addled Irish mobsters, which were desperate and on drugs and willing to, you know, do what they had to do to get money, but it backfired, right? So John Gotti and Sammy farmed this shit out to them. It wasn't even supposed to be a hit. They were just supposed to beat the fuck out of this contractor, essentially. Get him to play ball, right? This little prick wants to hold out and hold up money through the unions and stuff. Go give him a beat and let him know that we're not playing around. And, you know, it's back to business as usual. Except for these two drug-addicted idiots didn't do that. They figured it was easier than giving this guy a beating. We'll just shoot him in his ass 5 to 6 times. That's the equivalent, you know what I mean? Because, you know, they're on drugs and stuff, they weren't thinking. And this guy almost fucking died. He took like 5, 6 shots in his ass, almost died. You know, and Gotti and Gravano and all them were pissed. You know, and then they get caught, they get squeezed. The government almost gets him. They almost get Gotti on this trial. They kind of almost had him. They had him on wiretap, bust him up, and you know, bust him up. Where it was kind of inaudible and stuff like that. It was really that was the 3rd trial that Gotti beat in his reign as boss. Before that final one came where they had him. You know, even if Gravano didn't rat, he was going. He was done. You know, it is what it is. But essentially, I just wanted to go over the connection between the Gambino crime family and the Irish mob in New York, the Westies. Roy De Mayo and Jimmy COONAN, that connection there, always been an interesting one. And honestly, who taught who what? If you guys have any more insight on this, it always showed me nuts. Did Roy teach Jimmy or did Jimmy teach Roy? You know what I mean? The Houdini and the Gemini method. Which is which? You know what I mean? That always ate at my conscience. I'm a big reader. I've read many books. I'm going to do an episode soon enough of a reading list of all, you know, my favorite mob books that, you know, I do a lot of content on and I'm going to do content on. You know, if you're a big reader like I am, you know, I love books, audio books, regular books. But yeah, like I said, man, for real, if you know the answer to that open-ended question, comment that down below. If not, that concludes today's episode, guys. I hope you enjoyed it. We got the Super Bowl coming up in about 30 minutes. I swear to God, if San Francisco loses this Super Bowl and Pat Mahomes wins his 3rd one, man, Shanahan's he's gotta skip town or something. I don't know what he's doing. This is easy money. They better take this tonight. You know what I'm saying? But that being said, I hope you guys had a good weekend. Hopefully it's a good Super Bowl. I hope you guys enjoyed the video. Thank you guys as always. The channel is continuing to grow. Views, subscribers, you know, the networking. I'm talking with other content creators and stuff like that. Jason Trimmins is another content creator from my area, New England. You know, the Boston area. He's great. You know, there's really so many people doing so much good content these days. It's hard to keep up. But that being said, you know, if you guys have any suggestions for future videos, topics, characters you want to see done, comment that down below. But yeah, until then, I'll see you guys next week. Like, comment, share, and most importantly, guys, subscribe. It makes a huge difference. Until next time, guys, take care.